I want to introduce to you Derek Gerlach, who's a business associate of Joyce's, and they've worked on projects together that blend and balance the logic and intuition. And so Derek is actually going to introduce Joyce.
Sure, thank you. I've had the pleasure and honor of working with Joyce for a few years now. And I can say Joyce is one of the most lucid and clear, intuitive consultants that I've worked with. I've worked with a few, and I just so appreciate your abilities, your support. Joyce also really brings a really good balance of bringing really far out information and also very grounded ideas to help bring that into practice, because that's very important, because we're in the process of actually building these equipments. We're actually working on some really amazing regenerative technologies, and so having Joyce's guidance and her amazing support to help develop some of these next level technologies, because we have to use guidance, because these answers are not in a textbook. Like, if the answers were in a textbook, we could go there, but they're not. So Joyce and I work very well together, and I feel a lot of synergy. We hold the field together very well. Yeah, it's just, Joyce is a real pleasure to work with. There's very little personal agenda that Joyce has. It's very neutral. And anyway, I'm just super grateful that we're working together. What else can I say?
Thank you so much, Derek.
Yeah.
I so appreciate you being here.
Yeah, likewise. Yeah.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Derek is someone who I am so excited to be working with, because sometimes it's very challenging to manifest business partnerships or partnerships in general. And so part of this whole process of this talk tonight is about how do we miraculously manifest what we wish for, what we hope for, what we envision, without having to have a near-death experience that knocks us out physiologically or emotionally, right? So I have been very blessed to have 3 near-death experiences, yet if someone asked me, would you like another one? I'd say, no, thank you. 3 is plenty. And what it brings to my mind is that each one brought a little more discernment in my life of why I'm here. What is my purpose for being on this planet this time around? So I see near-death experiences as a sort of rebirth without having to leave and come back as an infant again. And this is partly my belief of, I truly believe that we have past lives and that our lives contribute one to another, and they bring us to this place. Now, it's not an accident that all of you have chosen to be here now on this earth at a time when I also think that the earth is going through a near-death experience. And last night I had this insight of how miraculous it is that we are even born. You may not know this, but last night I had this insight, and I wrote to a very dear friend who is a renowned developmental biologist, and he wrote me immediately, and my question to him was this: what are our actual odds of being born? And this is what he wrote: I've heard the statistics that the chance of one's being born is 1 in 4 million. 1 in 4 million. And he speaks to the physiological aspects of this. A single ejaculation contains about 20 million sperm. So the odds of any particular sperm forming to meet with an egg is 1 in 20 million. He goes on with this exponential oddity of our capacity to actually come onto this planet. And he speaks to the sperm in the egg being immature when this happens, literally, like physiologically immature, not able to connect. And what happens when one of our souls wishes to come in, all of a sudden, the sperm matures, one of them, and one of the eggs matures. And then there's a call and response, literally through the whole process of inception of our birth. How amazing is that, right? This is miraculous. So this is how we start out physiologically coming into our human vessel. That means somewhere along the way, we absolutely want to be here, because without the intention to want to be here, it's, what did I say? 1 in 4 trillion of our actually coming into existence. So, number one, congratulations. And thank you for your courage to be here at this time when the Earth, too, is going through what I think is a near-death experience. And we have a chance to co-create and collaborate through our own evolution of bringing in miracles onto this planet. And tonight, hopefully, we'll have an opportunity to experience a little bit of that eking out of our own beings. How do we instill or inspire miraculous manifestation in our lives? So, I'm going to share with you a little bit about my near-death experiences. Now, some of you, can I have a raise of hands of how many of you have already heard talks from me about my near-death experiences? Okay, a handful. So I am going to summarize them a little because I do want you to hear what happened to me, but I also want you to experience tonight. So I don't want to take too much time on that, but I'm going to get feedback from you. So I'm going to give you a summary first, and then I'm going to go through each of them. So the first one, I was not consciously aware of the memory of until after I had my third near-death experience. So the first one was at birth. My mother, who is my size, was given gas during the pregnancy, during the delivery, and they gave her so much that she couldn't push, and she started to vomit, and her vomit was choking me in her belly, so much so that I literally popped out and out of body and was greeted by an angel. And the angel said to me, "Well, hello, you have a choice. you could either come with us, and here are all your support systems, or you could go back into your mom's belly. And as you know, in that space of in between one life and the next, I was absolutely sure, beyond a shadow of a doubt, that I knew what my answer was. And the answer was this: are you kidding me? It took me so long to find my parents in the first place. Please, let me go back. So later on, I decided, you know, I'm going to ask my mother about this. I'm going to ask her what actually happened to see if there could be verification of what actually happened. And she said to me that this did indeed happen, and they had to pull me out with forceps, and I was blue and I was colicky from that point forward for a while. So what I take from that, being now where I am now, my experience of that was, wow, the gift of that near-death experience was to know that I had a choice, that I could actually choose to leave or to stay. The other piece of this is I started to look at what were the challenges, or what was the call to action from that experience. And what I received then was, the challenge was, I ended up having allergies to just about any medication and a lot of food from having to come back into my body after my mom experienced what she did. And then the third piece around this was the curious intersection between our relationship from coming into the world as a singular being, a unique, divinely created being, and how it connects with what other people want. So just a little backdrop to my mom and my dad. My dad came from a family of 13 children. He desperately wanted to have 10 kids. My mom came from a family of 11 children, and she desperately wanted to have one child. So they compromised at 5, and I'm one of 5 children. Now, if you could imagine this, my parents, my mom got pregnant during her honeymoon, and it was really frustrating for her. I'm telling you this for a reason. Think about the emotional push onto her world and the connection with a potential child coming to her when she really didn't want to be pregnant. Now, again, that's another thing. I didn't find out until years later that, number one, she had a miscarriage, that she had to carry to term even though it was a dead fetus in her body. It is a crazy scenario of what she had to go through. So it helped her to process through that and to feel a loss at the same time. So then she got pregnant with my older brother. And within a year, very short time period, I was born. And she told me, again, many years later, that she really didn't want to have a second child so close together. And so there might have been this call and response, or this push-pull relationally. Does this make sense to all of you? Now, second near-death experience. I was 8 years old. My parents were taking us on a family vacation. We did not go on a lot of family vacations because my father was working in several jobs to economically keep everything together. But we went on this vacation. And at the time, this is different now in our world, but the kids were allowed to go and play and do whatever they want. They could go as far away as they wanted to, and there was no worry for safety of the children. They knew that, oh, they're just, a mile down the beach. What could go wrong? So I love to swim. So I went into the water and got caught in a riptide. Got pummeled upside down and landed on a rock and went unconscious and left my body. And I felt this incredible feeling of freedom, this freed from my body, and at the same time, hey, wait a minute, something's not right here. And I was greeted by this absolutely incredible angelic being, gigantic angelic being, with a light emanating from her center, her core, that she asked me to step into. And I went into that core and became one with that light. So I, as an 8-year-old in this body, got to experience the feeling of all and nothing, being unique yet one with the light, the sensation of there is something way beyond my body at 8 years old. Very interesting experience, right? So when I started to see my relatives, they were like, hey, hi, Joyce. Hey, wait a minute. We weren't expecting to see you for quite some time. And the angel and this booming voice that I now feel was the voice of the divine, all that is, God's source, said, Joyce, this is not your time. It's not your time. You have to return back. And I was perfectly okay with it. At the same time, I was so grateful and felt so peaceful. So I was very carefully sent back, and what I remember is choking and spitting up water. And there was a small group of people around me and a lifeguard. The lifeguard took my vitals, and everyone simultaneously, as if on cue, like an orchestra, said, "Are you okay?" And I started laughing because it was like a movie or something. Okay, everyone, all together. Are you okay? And I coughed, and I know that when I hit my head, I was gone. I was hurt. I was bleeding. I know that in my heart. Yet, when I was asked if I was okay, I said yes, and the lifeguard said, "Yeah, you're okay." And of course, all the chatter about where are your parents and all that stuff, but suffice it to say, I was okay. And I went back to my parents. So now, the gift from that was all the things I've already said, but this sensation of there is support in the seen and unseen realms when there's a call, even if we don't consciously know we need to call for help. that angel was right there to sweep me right up. And whatever happened between my interaction in that other space and here, I was okay. Unlike the first near death where I had repercussions from what happened. So the other piece that happened was, so in the first one, the miraculous key, my birth near death was discernment and trust. So I want you to remember these words: discernment and trust. The second one was not only the miraculous key to help nuance discernment of truth and using intuition and logic and being totally open-hearted to this connection with spirit. And I had already exhibited having psychic capacities, identifying a child in kindergarten who precognitively, I saw him on the playground and saw him playing funny on the uneven parallel bars, collapsing from it, falling off of it, because he wasn't careful and dying. And then 2 weeks later, he actually died. Now, from that event, everyone was so scared, frightened of that gift, frightened of my gift. They made me feel frightened of my own gift. So 2 years later, 2.5, 3 years later, when I had this near-death experience, that all shifted. All of a sudden, I felt like I can truly accept these gifts because this is not unnormal. This is normal. This is part of our life. This is part of what I am gifted with that I could use in the world. So, miraculous key 2 from that experience was love overrides fear and self-acceptance. When I employ those now as an adult, miraculous things happen. I had to experience those near-death experiences to get it, to really take it in, for whatever reason. Now, I'll say one other thing about that. Some people end up with an illness when they can't grok something, or perhaps a disability when they haven't learned something, or they asked for that coming into this lifetime. So it could be a lesson that they can learn over the course of their life or the course of an illness. Think about it whenever you have had an illness in your life and you really look back on it as neutrally positively as you can, how many of you feel like there were gifts and lessons from that illness? How many of you? Yeah. This is the same is true with near-death experiences. Taking the challenges from them or the call to action from them. So, the call to action, I didn't have challenges from that second one. Like I wasn't injured, I didn't have brain injury, I didn't have a cracked open head, and it was all healed. But what I did have was a call to action. And the call to action was not seeing my gifts as a curse, but seeing them as the gifts that they were, and taking the courage to use them as best I could. Okay. Now, before we go to my third one, I would like you to take out your sheet of paper that you picked the color for. The reason why I chose these phosphorescent colors is because in my near-death experiences, everything was magnified in its color and its brilliance, like almost as if, like that angel with the golden light within her. I don't see that anywhere on this planet as it was there. So this was the closest, these were the closest to exaggerating colors that I could find. So the first thing I'd like you to do is to reflect on your parents. And if you could make a choice, why might you have chosen them? And I say that because some people don't believe that they've picked their parents. But let's just, for imagination's sake, say that you could choose your parents. And if you could write down why you might have chosen your parents. One or two reasons. I'll rephrase it a little differently. Imagine that you could have chosen your parents, that you have now, even if they have passed. Why might you have chosen them? After having experienced some of the things that I shared with you, I want you to imagine if you had a near-death experience at birth, why might you have chosen your parents? What have you learned in your time now from whatever you experienced from your parents? Whether it's positive or you feel has been challenging. No one needs to share right now, but if you would like to, please raise your hand and I'll pick a few of you. Go ahead.
I had extremely amazing parents. They were both very moral. My mother said, choose whatever religion you like, but without the Ten Commandments, there'd be no civilization. So adhere to those values. And they were both very honest, wonderful people and helped people in life. My father was non-judgmental, and thankfully I took after him. My mother, gracious, wonderful, diplomat daughter, taught me wonderful attributes.
Thank you so much. Those are beautiful examples. Thank you very much. Anyone else? Okay. Orion.
I came up with a few reasons why I chose my parents, and Joyce, you've helped me figure out a few of these because I know we've had some amazing sessions, and certainly gone through some struggles with my parents, especially relatively recently with their own health. But they're both true to their own understanding, and have a depth of honesty that I've always appreciated, and have also their own profound intuitive connections to the divine source. They love to camp out in nice places and gave me that gift of a connection to nature since early in life that has really given me a lot of my need. And they provided what I needed to become who I am.
Thank you so much. All right, so one more. Go ahead.
Yes, from my parents, I would say strength.
Okay.
Can you speak up?
Yes, from my parents, we are a part of six, and myself I'm part of triplet. So, from my parents, my parents were very different one from the other. My father was very strong intellectually, so from him I learned the complexity of thinking and always good values. And from my mother an immediate way of loving. So I needed that simplicity too, otherwise I would be probably brainy. And we suffered a lot, and I also had the gift of poverty. I was poor when I was younger, and I think that was a gift because we pulled it through. They pulled it through honestly. So from that, yes, I can say thanks, even though it was not that easy.
Yes, that makes me think of. Tell me your name.
Giovanni.
Giovanni. So Giovanni just said something that I think about a lot, and that is the silver lining of what appears to be negative while you're going through it. But then you could look back and say, he can say, he became resilient because of it. His family became resilient because of it. So these are some of what I consider to be miraculous long-term outcomes of this kind of process. Thank you. Yes, go ahead.
Compelled to speak. Took me a long time to get to understanding this, but I chose my parents to help me open my heart and compassion to other people who are suffering and to make me a better healer, and the ability to be without judgment towards people who are mentally disabled and physically disabled.
Beautiful.
Yeah, sort of cracked open my heart, having suffered so much in my life.
Yes. You know, you're making me feel inspired to say I have many clients who talk about their parents being prejudiced and that they were determined not to be. So there's another example where you pick the opposite trait of what your parents might be presenting as you're growing up. And it's eye-opening. And we may have chosen that on purpose to become who we wish to become, ever evolving. I like the Native American belief that we are not nouns, but we are verbs. We are becoming. We haven't become. We aren't set in stone. We are ever evolving, becoming beings on this planet in a beautiful way. So it allows us to always be in an open learning space to be becoming more and more what we wish to bring into the world.
And it helps with forgiveness.
Yes.
That's when you realize that it's evolving your soul came to
Yes.
do that.
Beautiful. Okay, so the second question related to my second NDE for you. Look back on your life and write down one or two positive turning points. Positive turning points. where you're going along, and things are just not exactly what you want, and then suddenly there's a turn in the road. Something happens. And it could be from something that appeared to be negative, but then turned positive. So take just a few minutes to write those down. So before I have anyone share, I want to tell you what happened after my second near-death experience. So when it happened, it was like, you're an 8-year-old kid and it just passes by like nothing happened. Well, I think it was 1 to 3 months later, I didn't know what the full impact of that near-death experience was. So a cousin of mine came over to my parents' house and brought a book over. And the book was Edgar Cayce, The Sleeping Prophet. Now, my dad was only a newspaper reader. He didn't like reading books. But here is my cousin who knew my dad well, and she's bringing over this book. And it was kind of curious to me that she would be bringing him a book when she knows he doesn't really like to read books. So she starts describing the book to my father, and my whole body goes into tingles, the same tingles I felt when I was entering into the angel during my near-death experience, and it brought everything back to me. So I'm listening to her in awe, wondering, so curious, what is this? And she was holding the book up as she's talking to my dad, and I see the picture of Edgar Cayce on the back. And again, this whole waft of goosebumps from my head to my toes and back again. And Derek knows that I have this expression, whenever something is completely true, my whole body goes into tingles. Like this is, I'm going to say, the right path. And I'm putting it in quotes because I don't mean right or wrong. I mean a really good path to go down, right? So I had dyslexia in school. I was being seen by a speech teacher, which I really didn't want to do. I had a lisp. I could barely read a first grade reader. I was in 3rd grade. I was not a very happy camper about that because I loved school. So I'm hearing my cousin talk about this book, and I'm thinking in my mind, I'm going to read that book. And then my next thought was, what are you thinking, Joyce? You can't possibly read this book. You're barely able to read books with letters this big. That didn't stop my soul from wanting to read that book. So as soon as this woman left, I took the book and brought it to bed with me and didn't tell my parents I was staying up with a flashlight. And I was able to read the book in 3 nights. 3 nights. My dyslexia was gone. I read and comprehended the entire book, and I felt this incredible kindredness. And I got to say, oh my goodness, there's someone else like me. I feel like they describe my life in that book. And boy, was that a gift. It was incredible. So from that point on, I felt empowered to use my gift. whenever I possibly could use it. And the key was, and I think you said it, a couple people said this, about ethics. Edgar Casey used this gift ethically. And when people tried to usurp it, he got sick. He became very discerning about who he would let into his inner circles. Okay, so there were several other things that happened, but that's the most important one. So now, who would like to share about that second question, the positive turning points? Anyone want to share what they wrote down?
I don't want to go again, but in the absence of a volunteer, I'm more than happy.
Is there anyone else? Steve?
I pulled a backpack out of a truck and I was on the ground. My whole back went out completely. And to make a long story short, for a couple of months it looked like I was going to be a cripple for the rest of my life. But what that started was this incredible learning path that has involved much, including, for a while I taught human evolution. I learned enough anatomy, yoga and various other things. I have quite a thing. I have no back problems now. None. But for a while, when it first happened, I thought I could wind up being a cripple for the rest of my life. I was on crutches for months. So that's what I want to share.
Wonderful example, a great example. Anyone else? Thank you, Steve. Go ahead.
I don't know, this is really a turning point, but it's a pretty important time of my life. I did a 3-week class with Tony Robbins in Hawaii, and I walked across 50 feet of hot coals. And then I climbed a big telephone pole and jumped off onto a swing, and it was a pretty powerful experience. And it was at that seminar that I realized that I wasn't going to wait around, that I was going to go after my dreams. And I had an all-encompassing dream to go around the world. So I came back and I just decided I was just going to do it. And that's right when Nike came out and showed the Nike commercial that said, just do it. So I remember, seeing that, and I went, okay, there's my sign, I'm just going to do it. And so I came back and I told my husband, I said, I'm going around the world, and I want you to go with me. And he said, well, I'll go.
We have a 4-year-old daughter.
And we had a 4-year-old daughter.
Oh my.
And he said, well, I'll only go if this happens, this happens, and this happens. And they all happened, okay? So they all happened. And so so he goes, I'm going. So we sold everything, and we went backpacking around the world for a year. And that was very pivotal. It was quite a turning point because it changed my life completely, because we went to, I don't know, maybe 18, 19 countries. Mostly developing countries. Spent a lot of time in Africa and a lot of third world nations and India, and had one. It was like every day there was something new, and I came back to this country and I have never been the same since.
Wow.
So I am completely different. I have a much broader, all of us, and we took our daughter with us, and she had a pink backpack, and we put her on Daddy's shoulders for 12 months. And
shorter than I did.
so she was 4 when we left and 6 when she came back. So she could come back speaking 18 different hello, goodbyes, and thank yous in all these different languages. And then we used her as a party prop and started to put her on show, and then she stopped. So I'm not doing this anymore. Anyway, but that was very, very, very powerful. Unfortunately, though, when I came back from the trip, I had a nervous breakdown, because I had spent so much time in these countries and so stimulated and felt so alive. And I mean, racism, what's that? Color, what's that? Economy, what's that? Money, what's, I mean, wish we had money, but, you know, it was just being in the world and experiencing the beauty of this planet. And so then when I got off the plane in Los Angeles, you know, then the first thing we see is a Burger King. And then we see all this other stuff, and it's like the first world just slammed me, you know, right in my face, and I couldn't cope with it. I had a really hard time. When we came back, Marty and I split up, and I went to Ashland, Oregon, and thought, well, we'll make it up there. That wasn't the right move. But I went up there and fell apart. So then my doctor said, come on back, try to recreate as much of your old life as you can. It took me a long time to get back. But, and eventually I did, and I acclimated, and, you know, here we are, and we're doing okay, you know, we're fine, and we got back together again, but that change, it was just, it's hard to explain.
Thank you so much for sharing that for so many reasons, because this is an unpackable one. Like, so much is in there. So I just want to say thank you very much for sharing that. I'm just going to take a few of the pieces of that to speak to that relate directly to near-death experiences. So you had an incredible turning point with being able to go beyond the physical body. Those activities that you spoke of are taking our power, our innate power, and doing something that I call power with versus power over. So powering with something allows you to take your individual power that's connected to the divine and to source, and people have their own terms that I respect, and you took it and you ran with it, and you were given signs in that direction. So synchronicities often happen when we start to follow the path of that power. Much like near-death experiencers, they do not want to come back to Earth because their experience is of non-judgment, non-prejudice, all those things that you described. And at the same time, your experiencing that allowed you, for yourself, to be a bridge from that expanded self that's connected to going beyond our bodies, taking in all the power we have to walk on this planet, which is a dual and very dense planet, very hard to experience the same degree of expansiveness as being here grounded, but it's possible. And that's what part of this is about, that we can create those experiences in the flesh, which is what Tony Robbins' experience taught you, and move into new arenas after having, an emotional response to it. So it doesn't have to be bad. It doesn't have to. It doesn't have to turn into having your life be, this was good and this was bad. It's all a part of the learning and unfolding and becoming. So you experience that quote-unquote nervous breakdown because you were experiencing this dissonance between what you felt as expansive and loving and what you saw as maybe harmful.
Yeah, it's almost like if you have an NDE and you're on the other side, it's so amazing and beautiful and there's no problems and everything's great and you love it and you can keep going and going. But then I came back. So I was in this space, and again, coincidentally, going around the world, right? So I'm experiencing this globe,
Yeah.
right? And then coming back to reality, to paying bills, to finding a place to live, to having to buy a car, to getting car insurance, to getting a job, to paying taxes, to all these things. And after having been on that side, now all of a sudden I'm now back in my body, and I'm having to face this physicality, this reality of carrying water and chopping wood like everybody else, and vacation's over. And yeah, it's, but then, so then you go through it, and if you come back as after an experience like, you know, you've had, and then your body has to heal, and it's got to adjust, and then you know, and then you get back into things, and that's kind of what I did.
Well, I appreciate you sharing that, and I want all of you to know that we can recreate those miraculous experiences while we are chopping wood, carrying water. Every day. And I'm not kidding you. I'm not just making this up. I witness it every day. And the more that I'm conscious of it and the consciousness of inviting it in, the more it happens. When I'm conscious to invite it in, what happens to me is I start to have synchronistic things happening over and over again. And that's what I invite you to do without having to go through necessarily the suffering. Although the suffering sometimes also can bring learning, as we all know. Okay. Thank you so much, everyone. All right, so the last near-death experience was probably the most emotionally traumatic for me. I'll give you a backdrop. I'll tell you, it was 2001, and the backdrop was approximately 5 years before that. I was in Florida, and within a probably 8-month period, I lost my job because the company went out of business. I was going through a divorce, and my father was diagnosed with cancer. And it was a very challenging time. I'm sure sometimes every one of you have little periods of your life where things come in 3 and it feels really bad. And sometimes it comes in 3 and it feels really good. Well, this was a time where I was really hurting. And getting a divorce was probably one of the most difficult things that I've done in my life. There were maybe a few other things that came close, because I had such a belief in working things out. That was my belief. So, and by the way, I'm still good friends with my ex-husband, which is really unusual as well, and a very good thing. And so I got a call from my parents when my dad was ill, and we mutually decided that it would be helpful for them if I moved from Florida to New York, where I grew up. I went up there to help out until my dad went into remission. When he went into remission, I then was on a job search, a new job search, to get a teaching position somewhere. And a job came up in New Mexico, and I was in a place at the time of, I would describe it as spiritually connected, but also in a fear space around money, having grown up with parents who were trying to make ends meet. My dad ended up working in 3 jobs, and it was very stressful at times in growing up when I was young. That changed over time. For me, though, to be alone and still young. I got married very young, so I knew not a lot about, although I took care of myself, and when I was 10 years old, I started working, literally. So I always knew how to take care of myself. But at that point, having been married and then gotten divorced and being without a job, I took essentially the first thing I could get it accepted to be a part of. When I went out to that position, it was multiple jobs. I was at one point co-chair of the department. I was teaching a full-time load. I was helping to organize a new $9 million building and buying all the equipment and furniture for that building. And it was so much, and it paid poverty wages. My boss and I were doing the bulwark of the work, and so we were working 20 hours a day together. And he, every day, would ask me, will you date me? Will you date me? Will you date me? And I did not want to. But after being asked so many times, and then being threatened with, if you don't, you will no longer have this job, put me into a real deep fear space. And I made a choice out of fear and said, yes, I will date you. Fast forward, when I got back into my connection with Source very, very deeply, I knew that it wasn't right to be in that relationship, and I tried to break it off. Several different things happened. At first, it was okay, but then my boss got really angry, and at one point, we were speaking about something about work, and he mentioned something about I needed to date him in order to go forward. And I said something like, I can't do that. And then it's like something in him snapped, and he started to strangle me. And he would not take his hands off my neck. 6'2", 280-pound sculptor. And I just was so shocked that that started happening, that I really didn't move fast enough. And then suddenly I knew I was losing consciousness the more that he was strangling me. And he whispered in my ears, I can drag you into the desert, hide you, and no one would ever find you. Now, having that kind of a message as you're exiting is a very strange intersection between deep emotional confusion and going into a space of completely letting go. And I was out of my body again. This time, instead of looking up, like I did in my second near-death, I looked down, saw my body, saw what was happening, and was completely brought through a series of things. And I'm going to go through this quickly because I want you to be able to experience this. The first thing that happened was I was brought to a book. And the book was backward in time from that current moment of being strangled, but a life review to my birth, backward. And in that life review, the angels that were surrounding me at the time were, and I heard this booming voice that again felt like God source, divine source, saying, Joyce, look at all the beautiful things you've done in your life. And I was just in tears, just nonstop crying as this was going on in that space, in the in-between. And they made me feel so beautiful to look back and just please reflect. Then, in the most gentle, non-judgmental way, they said, now we want you to see a few other things. And they showed me a handful of times where I consciously or unconsciously made choices that ended up harming people. And they showed me why. And they were primarily when I made choices out of fear. Then I was in this vortex, this gigantic vortex that brought me through a tunnel-like space, beautiful light, sparkling lights swirling around. And I was literally suctioned into a circle of master teachers, including Christ, Krishna, Buddha, Great Mother, Babaji, and 2 others that I still haven't met yet. And I was told that I will meet them if I come back before my natural death in this lifetime. So, in that space, the master teacher said to me, would you like to receive a download from the universe of wisdom through the ages? And I was like, yes, thank you. This would be fantastic. And I said, I just hope that I can remember it. So in that space, it felt like a lifetime of sharing, of ancestral heritage, of the heritage of the earth, of what's happened in the building of the universe, at the time of dragons, at the time of religious and spiritual intersections, at the time of the first organism being brought into life on earth, and also my own heritage, my grandparents, my ancestors who also were considered healers, and it was passed down to me, and past lives. And I'm just going to list one past life, which was this. I was shown that in the time of the French guillotine, I was my strangler's executioner. And in that space of mirroring that, energetic, it was as if I understood everything. And I just melted into this space of deep, I had already forgiven him. I didn't have trouble forgiving others, but I had trouble forgiving myself. And I forgave myself in that space, which was a beautiful thing to be able to do. And then they said to me, you could come with us. It's perfectly good for you to come with us, or you could go back. And I knew, because of what I learned in that wisdom space, why would I want to leave my life that I knew what I needed to do and to share all that I had learned in that space through what I had already done and what I would be intending to do around how do we lead our lives? How do we forgive others, forgive ourselves, and see the reflection of why these things happen in our lives and why they happen on a global scale? And to continue at every turn to try to make ethical, loving choices and walk my deepest talk so I can mentor others to walk their deepest talk. So, miraculous key from that. Take responsibility for your life. I had to take responsibility for my life. Now, just to finish up the story so you know what happened and not left in the lurch. When I chose to come back, I said, hey, wait, before you send me back, could you please help me out here? I'm still being strangled. And they gave me exact instructions of what to do. We will put our hands on your hands to pry his hands off of you. You will grab your purse for ID and you will run out the door and don't look back. Because this person was very renowned in the community, I knew that I could not press charges against him, all the logical things that we get asked to do when things like that happen. And I chose not to, not because I didn't want to help other people or help myself, but I did not want to take my life force to be in litigation for 10 years. I wanted to use it for the co-creative, positive expression of how we could live our lives in a better way and not allow ourselves to be powered over by someone else, nor ever power over someone else, including ourselves. So, this key involves not only responsibility, but gratitude and forgiveness. I felt such incredible gratitude, like gratitude you can't even imagine, and divine love in every cell of my being that I would share as much as humanly possible to do so. So, the gifts were the master teacher's downloads, the choice to forgive with divine love, others and myself, and the call to action was to take responsibility for my life choices, including my powering over myself. So, for all of you, I would like you to write down one or two ways you know you have made a difference in someone's life, and one or two ways you may have inadvertently or consciously harmed someone.
Can I just ask you one thing?
Yes.
What happened to the man? Did you let go of your neck?
He did. He was so when my hands were on his neck, the master teachers put their hands around my hands, pried his hands away from my neck, and I just ran out the door.
Oh my goodness. And he didn't run after you, he just
Nope.
stood there. Amazing.
He did not.
Great.
The power above.
Amazing.
He would have been conflicted by the power that he had.
Yeah.
That's exactly right, and that's exactly what I think happened. He was shocked. He was shocked.
What did you say to him?
I didn't say a word to him.
So really?
I did not say a word to him. I did exactly what I was instructed to do. I did not look back. I did not say a word. Yeah. Now, I had to stay at the school and try to work with this gentleman afterward, which was excruciatingly difficult. So that was the massive challenge, and I was hurt on top of that. I had damage to my throat and larynx and I actually think it contributed to my thyroid issues. So, but for the most part, I was not harmed too badly, thankfully. And, but it really was challenging to deal with having to leave the school because I loved my job and I loved the students I worked with. And that was extremely challenging to explain to them what happened.
Did you leave at the end of the year then?
Yeah, I left. Oh, okay. So the follow-up, this is a very good question because I left, and you guys are not going to believe this because it's, again, synchronistic craziness. I was told you have to leave before 9/11, 2001. So I left on September 9th, 2001. I have scoliosis, so driving for really long distance I have to be careful of, but it was the master teachers and God source saying, you just keep driving as long as you can possibly drive. So from New Mexico to Latham, New York, 3,200 miles, I drove it in 2 days, arriving at midnight just before 9/11 happened. The next morning, I just automatically woke up at like 6:45 in the morning. Why? Right? And heard on my dad's radio while he was shaving what happened with 9/11. And also knew in my heart, as I was watching it, that I was told by divine source, that there was, be careful what you assess it to be. That there is something more behind the scenes of this, and it's not what it appears to be. And I was told to be very vigilant about being discerning about the ethical backdrop of what happened on 9/11.
But also, how many days were you in the school after going through this drama?
Oh, several months, because I had so many commitments and there were no other teachers and the students would have been left in the lurch. Yeah.
What did they tell you about 9/11?
Let's save that for later. Don't forget that question. Let's save it for later because I want to get to this.
Why did you choose to say to the children what happened? Which age
I just told them that a very threatening circumstance had occurred to me, and that I am sorry that I have to leave, but I have to leave. And yeah, it was very sad. Yeah. So, okay, so now I would like you to answer one more thing. Hang on a moment. Okay. So what I'd like you to do is to consider the 3 miraculous messages from those 3 near-death experiences, and I want you to write down one word or one phrase that you would like to address that most resonates with you of those 3 concepts for this next section, which is a meditation for a life review. I'll repeat the 3 miraculous concepts or keys. Love overrides fear or transmutes it. Overrides fear or transmutes it. The second is discernment, and discernment in many ways. Like, am I going to use more of my logic and my intuition, or am I going to integrate them in making decisions, or assessing the kind of people who are in my inner circles, or the people I choose to work with? And that also relates to discerning of truth and who we trust in our lives.
So what was that again, the discernment, just discernment?
Discernment.
Okay.
Yep. And the third one is related to responsibility with gratitude and forgiveness. So just pick one of those, but what I'd like you to do is pick one and make a phrase for yourself that relates to your own life. And let me add this, in that this, I encourage you to think of this as, you know, when all the things happen in our lives, including those things that are global, the warring that's going on right now, rather than to assign blame to the other, what I'd like for us to do is consider, how can we change to be mentors for others and have it ripple out from the inside out, from our personal lives to our more global lives? And that doesn't mean that we can't affect change at very large scale. But what if we don't have the opportunity to do that? How could we do it in our own lives, within our own souls, within our own bodies and beings? This is what near-death experiences, in my own experience, does or did for me. It's from the inside out. The more that I learn how to consciously choose power with versus power over, to choose love over fear, to choose seeking and speaking truth, to choose integrity, to choose ethics, to choose whatever it is, those are my words for my life, for me. What are they for you? What would you like to change in your life that would help you?
What was the third thing again?
The third thing is taking responsibility, or responsibility for your own life, with a emphasis on, don't forget that that could include gratitude and forgiveness to help make that happen. So for the next 5 minutes, I'm going to be doing a guided meditation for you around a life review. And I want you to imagine the beauty of the near-death experience as you do this. I want you to feel the support, that this is safe, that you're not being judged, just like I experienced. That we get to look at it as neutrally loving witnesses of our own lives. And I want you to imagine that you're going to learn things about yourself that will surprise you in this space. So when I do the guided meditation, I highly encourage you to close your eyes so that you don't have distractions around you. Now, for guided meditations, most people think it's just visual. Don't think of it that way. Think of your own way of taking in information. It could be visual, it could be auditory, it could be smells that you suddenly smell, it could be symbols, it could be numbers, it could be sacred geometry, it could be anything. Just don't try to release your personalities and filters and just allow for whatever wants to come to you during this to come to you. You're going to do a complete letting go. We get to be responsible for our lives, but we don't have to control everything. And when we tap into our oneness, then it's this great co-creation. Then we get to take in all these beautiful messages that really are a part of our souls to bring forward. Great Spirit, Divine Source, all that is, all the master teachers and loving guides, all those from the ancestral and angelic realms. Thank you for your presence on this evening with all these amazing souls in this room. May the messages that come through for them and each of us be for the best and highest good, and only that which is supportive for their life force be allowed in, and all others be asked to leave. May you be supported in your space and place, and just allow that which wants to emerge to come to you. Take a nice deep breath. And imagine that out of the blue, suddenly, you are being called away out of your body for whatever reason. You are being called away while your sacred body is held in beautiful reverence and health, as healthy as can possibly be. I'd like you to imagine that as you breathe, you suddenly feel this sense of being supported by the divine, loving energy in the form of golden light begins to enter into your vessel from the top of your crown, gently moving through all of your chakras, keeping you threaded and connected in this beautiful way as you allow yourself to be released gently from your body so that you can experience your life review. Take a nice deep breath, filling your body with this divinely loving energy. You are greeted by an incredible angelic force. Beautiful light being. letting you know through your senses that this is safe and beautiful and loving. Imagine, if you will, being caressed by what would be a divinely loving, universal mother, holding you, allowing you to rest in her arms, feeling a letting go as the divine masculine and divine feminine marry in your space. Taking a nice deep breath, you see a book in front of you, and on the book is a movie that shows clips of your life. The first clip is related to a way that you have helped someone in your life that, whether you know it or not, you have made a huge difference. So take a moment and watch this time of when you have chosen to take action and express yourself in a way that made a beautiful, positive difference in someone's life. Now, as your ancestors are aware that you are in this space of other dimensions, in the space of the near-death, open, loving, non-judgmental arenas, they are watching over you too. Your ancestors, those who have passed, are just holding you sacredly, whether touching or not, but you feel completely safe. Allow them to interact with you for a moment and gift you with a message. Just allowing whatever is needed for your experience of deeply divine acceptance and joyful, loving gratitude from the divine for you, allow them to experience the joy of your creation. Now you get to witness another little clip of when you have provided a positive word or some way that you have positively contributed. Take a moment to watch that now. And now keep in mind the 3 miraculous ways: love versus fear, discernment, and responsibility with gratitude and forgiveness. And as these master teachers who want nothing but the best for you, they ask you to be disarmed and vulnerable, and take a moment to watch a little clip of when you might have inadvertently harmed someone. Now take a nice deep breath, and as you do, the master teachers ask you if you could forgive others. And just take a breath and just allow for whatever comes in. And it doesn't matter what it is, just allow it. And now you're being asked if you could forgive yourself. And again, whatever comes in. Now take a nice deep breath. And all the master teachers are now showing you beautiful rainbow colors of light. Know that they are filled with what we experience as divine love on this planet. Feel it bathing you. Full and complete acceptance of all that you are. Being able to forgive others and self, and being grateful that you could be responsible going forward. And now you are told this time that this is not your time to stay with them, but your time to come back into this beautiful sacred vessel you have chosen to incarnate in. But they are bringing you the message of, you can call upon us at any time, of any day, of any second on your life walk. And now they are bringing you back into your body with all of the beautiful energy of this divine loving light continuing to flow from your crown chakra down your body to your toes, surrounding you like a toroidal field through your feet, back up, around to your crown, filling you. Take a nice deep breath. Keeping your eyes closed. And when you hear the sound of this bell, you will keep your eyes closed but come back fully into your body at each ring and the final closing of this prayerful space. Great Spirit, Divine Source, all that is, all the master teachers and loving guides, those from all of your ancestry, and those from the angelic realms, thank you. Thank you for all of the messages, the symbols, the quietness, the peacefulness, perhaps even silence. Thank you for all those things and more. May the messages that came through in whichever form be for your best and highest good and for those that surround you. And may you walk with those messages integrating over time into your life. When you are ready, you can each open your eyes. If you could, turn to the person next to you, so 2, 2, 2. 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, and 2, and Rich, Rich. And I'm going to have you each share with each other. The person with the shortest hair goes first to share whatever you wish to about this experience. And the other person, your partner, will sit as a neutral witness to hear you and hold a loving space for you to share whatever you wish to. And then I'll give you a couple of minutes on each turn. So when you're ready, one with the shortest hair goes first again, and if you can't decide, pick the person whose alphabetical first name is the earliest. I want to thank you so much for your amazing participation. Do not be surprised if you felt any resistance about doing this. And I say that because, do you think I wanted to have that last near-death experience? Talk about resistance. So Spirit sometimes comes in and gives a 2x4 across the head. And 2x4s are not something I want anymore. So resistance is normal for this. because it's a deep, deep dive about deep, deep changes in our own lives. And it's very, very challenging to change when we've been doing things a certain way for so long, right? Okay, so I wanted to let you know, Rich reminded me that I did bring some of my books, Extraordinary Leadership During Extraordinary Times. In that book, it's more of from the personal to the global experiences that you will be able to see happen with people's lives where they don't have to have an NDE. I did talk about my boss and that last NDE in the book, but I don't call it a near-death experience. And I'll tell you, this last story was, I finished the book, and it was all about the culmination of what had happened from everything I spoke to you about today. And my way of bringing back into the world these wisdom teachings that were so graciously bestowed upon me in those experiences, many, many others too. And it takes a village to create a book or do any of these things in our own lives. So I just want you to know that this is something I just feel so passionate about, that if we can change one aspect of ourselves, it truly is like the concept of the butterfly moving its wings and creating a tsunami across the ocean. It's in the positive way. If each one of you makes one small change in your life, I guarantee you, number one, you're going to experience many more miracles in your life. And number two, you're going to notice that you become a mentor by your actions with other people around you. And maybe even globally. Yes.
I've been listening to a guy named Dr. Zach Bush.
Yes.
Okay?
I'm familiar. Yes.
Freaking genius. And he was talking about the patients that he was working on and the NDEs that they experienced on the operating table and leaving and then coming back. And he studied them. And he talked about all the, and these are people who didn't know each other or anything, and they were all with the light, everything that you kind of experienced, so did they. And the common thread, the common lesson, which is what I got reinforced through this meditation that started a few days ago by me listening to him, and then before that, Greg Braden, that I was watching a video with him, and he was talking about the same thing, that every single one of them said the same thing, that when they were on this other side, they felt complete love and acceptance. So that everything, no matter what it is, that everything, they completely were enough. They were enough, they were completely loved, completely accepted, no conditions, nothing. And not just about them, what they saw was complete acceptance about what was happening on the planet, what was happening with the war, what's happening with everything, that it's just accepting all of it with no resistance. And so it was the same thing, which was the messages that I got in the meditation, was loving, complete acceptance, surrounded by complete acceptance, complete love, and complete forgiveness. And when you do that, and Mark Allen, who is a friend of mine who has this publishing company up here in New York, up in Nevada, and he said to offer, he got this, I think it was from Eckhart Tolle, to offer no resistance to life is to be in a state of grace and ease. So this is the messages that I got, and that I then got again tonight, so that when you are on this other side, and you don't have to die in order to experience, you can let go now, and just be the peace. And then the other thing that they said was, and I'll hurry, and that was that we can pray about the war in Ukraine. We can get together in mass numbers and crime will go down and peace, ceasefires and all these things happen, right? And they're all amazing and they're all wonderful and they all work until everybody stops and they go back to their lives and now they've got their ego issues and all this other stuff and then the fighting resumes. So they said if you really, really want peace in Ukraine or peace within your life or peace in the world, you have to be unconditionally peaceful. So you just be the peace. You just be peaceful. You just be love. You be acceptance. You be the forgiveness all the time. And when that happens, it has its trigger effect to affect everything and everyone around you. And that's how we create a whole paradigm shift on this planet.
Yeah,
That's what I got from tonight.
that's fantastic. Thank you so much for sharing and kind of summarizing a lot of what this is about. And I also want to add something that sometimes people misinterpret the notion of, it's all peaceful, it's all okay, as not taking right action or not taking action at all. I don't think that is what it means. The notion of, everything is going to be what it is, that is true. But in addition to that, we have come here each, I believe, uniquely to bring gifts, to bring people closer to that understanding of oneness and the divine, while also raising the consciousness of the entire planet. And that is something that it's a very personal question I encourage each of you to ask yourself is, what would be the best ways to act, do, be, create in the world that would help to co-create a better world while helping to raise our consciousness and that understanding of divine love. That's what I imagine that each of us can do and be, and why we're here in the first place. So asking each of yourselves, why did I choose to come here this time around? Why did I choose to come here this time around? And we each can make incredible contributions in that way. Co-creating. So another thing I've learned is those on the other side, we all have this thought of, they don't think that we are helping to create. But what I have received in those near-death experiences is we are amazingly appreciated. As much as we can be grateful, those on the other side and the divine teachers are so grateful for our choosing to evolve on this planet each time we do. It's amazing gratitude I felt for each of us during the meditation tonight. People don't expect that, but that's what I receive, that exchange, that beautiful exchange. Orion.
One of the big lessons that has been culminating for me both tonight and in recent past is a recognition of the power of our thoughts and prayers that we send out to the universe, and also the power of the thoughts and prayers that we don't send out. And meaning, what I mean by that is how sharing about what's sacred to me has often been popular among my normal community, and being more effective in sharing and inspiring deeper prayers in my community is one of my dreams and desires, because I know it's autocatalytic, and it can bring profound amplification of the benefits we want to leave for the future to inherit in these types of discoveries and recognitions that aren't mainstream quite yet. And this has been a struggle both leading up to this and sharing with people, and then feeling muted responses and being a little shut down by that, a little possibly frustrated, feeling that like these people that I care about so much don't reciprocate with recognition of the value of what's inside of me, and then I have to kind of let that be okay. But is there some wisdom that you've gained to share with us to speak towards that going forward, and how we can take these gifts and offer them in an unattached, more effective way so that does have that catalytic power?
Yes, I believe that there is a notion of divine timing on our planet, because we live in a dual world. When you're in the near-death experience, time is timeless. It feels like a minute has gone by and an eternity has gone by simultaneously. So when we come into the earth again and into our bodies after meditation or during meditation, or when we're sharing with people, to be able to tune in to the energetic of people around us and ask yourself, is this in divine timing for me to share this right now? And are these the people who would be or might be receptive to receiving this information? And if you get a yes to both of those, no matter what they respond, there's another level of taking in that we might not see with these two eyes. And then let go. And then you know that you've done everything in your human capacity to bring those ideas forward on this planet. And your time has come. Your time is coming. I know it is.
It's just the letting go, and it leads into a difficulty with forgiveness. But part of it is really forgiving myself. This is part of the equation.
Yes. And the other piece of this is the word impatience. How many of you feel impatient about, what's happening in our world? Cycles recycling over and over again. Warring that we saw how long ago, and then it repeats itself. One of the things I did not talk about, which I'm going to talk about now, is in that last near-death experience, and this is making me think of your question right now, Orion, is there are times when if we can be in that most neutrally loving witness space where you're not expecting anything in return, but you could be in complete forgiveness of others and self, that's when karma gets graced. That's what I was told in the big download. And they showed me. I didn't share this piece. Right after that, just before I was sent back, or I chose to come back, that book that was the life review had nothing in it, had nothing on it. It was a blank slate. So we don't have to feel like we're bound constantly with karma. We could take steps to invite karma to be graced. And when it does, then a floodgate happens. Then it's, how when you feel in alignment, it's in divine timing. and everything seems to happen just like the carpet is rolled out for you. This doesn't happen very often in life, but that's what divine timing is about. It's like I was talking to Dan earlier, this graceful, brilliant man who's about to launch his own book very soon. I said to him, sometimes the universe conspires to our greatest positive impact in the world. And when that happens, it's just a beautiful thing. And rather than be impatient for it to happen, to be in grace, to be ready for when it happens, so that you can take it in and you don't have other things that you're trying to do that you've put in its place because you thought that you needed to do more in order to make it happen. And it's not, doesn't always work that way. It's breathe in, breathe out. I'm going to be patient until divine timing presents itself. And the more you prepare for that opening, it's like the old movie. When you build it, they will come. It had to be right timing.
Feel the dreams.
Excuse me. Yes, it is. So before we move on to another question, I'm going to have you take out your envelopes. And for those who did not receive them, raise your hands. They were on the chairs when you came in. Okay, so I wrote these before you came, and I wrote them as a way to sit with your souls as I was writing them, and whoever got whatever one was intended from Spirit to be a message for you.
Can we read them now?
Yes, you can read them now. And for those of you who did not get a card, the gift, as I experienced in my near-death experiences, afterward, they're gifts that come in abundance. So this is my expression of a gift to come after your life review. And the crystals were hand-found, hand-discovered crystals that I dug myself and have held in sacred ceremony. And those gifts are energetic gifts for you to use in whatever way you wish to. So the crystals help to activate your pineal gland, your connection with Spirit, your psychic connections. And the rose quartz are intended to address divine love, to bring more love into your life. And those with the combination of rock and crystal are meant to bring earth energies and those energies of the intuitive together, integrated into your life. So if anyone wants to share, they can, or if you have any more questions. Yes.
This is so perfect for me. It's like you knew this was for me because I won't read it all, but in the beginning you say, although it is so easy to be triggered emotionally by what we've experienced, I'm a very emotional person, and I'm triggered a lot by things that move me in different ways, usually positive but negatively too.
Yeah.
And so this is really great. Thank you.
You're welcome. And I want to add, I'm so glad that you spoke up, because there is something about emotions that is very important here. Our emotions are very healthy. It's healthy that we have emotions. They're a part of our beingness. They're a guidepost for our life. But if we let them run the show, then we're not in our divine power to move forward. So, and we all experience this. We all experience being triggered. My encouragement is you try on a daily basis to be responsive versus reactive. And it is a constant process and practice, especially with all that's going on in the world. Yes?
It's brought tears to my ears and eyes, because this is exactly what I'm working on. And you had said you were being encouraged to transmute your fear of change. And you were talking about love over fear. And I heard from Spirit, fear is not real. It is a learned behavior.
Very beautiful. Did everyone hear that? That is fantastic. This is exactly what I'm talking about. Now, you see how miraculous that is? That is like a lifetime lesson right there in that one phrase. Could you say that one more time, please?
Fear is not real. It is a learned behavior.
Beautiful. Yes.
Heard a phrase the other day, fear knocked at the door and love answered, no one was there.
Awesome. That's terrific. That's another thing, humor. Humor is so, so important for miraculous things to come in. Okay, so I'm going to say, whomever wants to stay, I'm going to stay for 15 more minutes, and I'm going to do intuitive work if you wish to. I will go into trance, and if anyone wishes to ask a question in public, I would be more than happy to. Would anyone like to stay to do that? Okay? I'm going to reset the energetic for a moment. By the way, this is a hand-pounded Tibetan singing bowl that was made in 322 AD. It was gifted to me by a very dear friend who was thanking me for some work that I did for him. He had no idea what was pounded into this, but all the phrases and expressions and the image on the outside and the inside are related to divine love. So this is a resonant bowl for divine love, primarily.
Beautiful. Has a great sound.
Great Spirit, Divine Source, all that is, all the Master Teachers and loving guides, thank you for your presence all evening. Thank you for the messages that come through me, for you, and for these beautiful people. May my personality and filters be set aside such that what comes through is purely for them, intended to be for their best and highest good. oftentimes with huge expressions in the United States or on this planet. It is a reflection of ancestral karma, karmic debt. In the case of 9/11, this was intended on a global scale as a way to have people see the divisiveness of separation, to see beyond the surface, to dig deeply for what truths have unfolded and the truth related to that which was intended. When these events unfold, there is an understanding of being face to face with contradictions. And when people can come to a place of being able to own their actions, it brings about great forgiveness. When it is not and held at bay, then it becomes a non-judgmental choice, a choice to bring to light while becoming neutral in judgment, so that what wants to emerge for each person's learning will do so. We, as human beings, are asked to be responsible for what we bring out as the truth or hide. We are being asked to be responsible for ourselves in that respect. Those who cast stones on others will only bring about retaliation. That is not what is intended from divine source. Eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth will go on in the cycles for millennia. Karmic debt owed forever. When one becomes aware of the non-judgment and forgiveness of others and self, while asking for a restoring justice, if it is possible, on this planet, then there is an even greater connection with the all that is, and a raising of the vibrational energetics of the earth that is dense. It is a place where divine love can be expressed in ways unlike other planets. This allows for a greater expansion of that understanding on this planet. And there is a notion of how does one truly understand? And yet, you each know in your soul when something feels divinely healthy and right. This is related to an innate knowing of that ethical code that was referred to earlier with those 10 commandments. Those commandments are threads of guidelines that are instinctively known in almost every earthly religion and spiritual practice. The foundational essence of which is do no harm with divine love. Who would like to ask a question? So in a place and space of this nature, in a space and place of this nature, this is a co-creative exchange. So when you ask a question of that sort, it is very important to sift through logically and concretely. Where are you called to first? What places on this planet would be nourishing for your soul? Asking yourself in your own being first. And then there are places that can be shared with you that will be best on a more spiritual level. Would the land be good for you? Would you be good for the land? There are people who move to places and take nothing into consideration, and then they are miserable when they are there. What if perhaps they have had a past life somewhere and they have harmed someone on that land in that past life? They went without reflection, using all of their senses, all of their beingness as human beings to help discern. There is that word again, discernment of what would be best for you from what you already know. Do you need to be near the water? Would it be best for your health and well-being to be in the cold or the warmth? All of these logical questions can be distilled. Then you can narrow it down, for there are many places in the world in which you can live. There is an energetic that is encouraging you to not deny yourself those things you might need, like preferring it to be slightly warmer than colder, being around people that have like-mindedness. It would be devastating for you emotionally and energetically if you moved to a place where like-mindedness was not supported. For community is what is needed in your space and place for you personally. Community is what your soul is calling for. Perhaps some portions of Texas and some portions of Florida, or land that is close to California, but not in California, on the eastern border, southeastern border. Anyone else? Thank you. Would you like to ask a question? Yes. Yes. There is a great effort on the planet at this time to create separation. And you understand that we are not separated. It is just an illusion of separation. You are being encouraged to approach all with divine love and be in your truth, to speak your truth, while still being respectful to whomever it is you are speaking. It is not your responsibility how they react to you. This is extremely important, to not take on their reaction to you, but to forgive them for perhaps the experience you might have of losing them as friends or even family. This is directly related to the notion of power and powering over. You neither have to power over them, nor do you have to power over yourself and concede to something that you do not believe in. But you can be divinely loving and respectful to all. If someone reacts and chooses to remove themselves, it is important to gracefully let them make their choice. Allow them that. Then you are left with perhaps the emotion of grief, grieving your loss of them as a companion or friend or family member. Yet, this is another form of learning. Are you choosing to make decisions because someone wants you to, or because you truly believe in it energetically in your being? If you begin to power over yourself, there will be consequences within your body. People who power over themselves are suppressing their own expression of truth and likely may have set themselves up for dis-ease within their bodies. If you can walk a path where you can hold divine love and your own experience of truth, as was stated earlier, that foundational understanding that relates to symbolically the Ten Commandments, and you can sit with the courage of this, you will be supported in the unseen and seen realms. This essentially is part of what your soul wishes you to learn, wishes you to step into, knowing that it brings you ever closer to your divine source, divine origins. The loneliness is another component that is part of your growth. Turn the loneliness into connection, deeper connection within and to that divine source. And this can be done through meditation and other practices that are healthy for you and your well-being. Is this clear?
Yes.
take in that divine source wishes you to fully accept yourself in that place of choice. And is grateful for your stepping into your fuller and complete expression of who you are. Yes. You're deeply loved and supported in that place. And you could feel it, can't you? Who else would like to ask one more question? Yes. There are multiple experiences of conflict in your being, how to act and how to be. What many would describe as cognitive dissonance. You have fought with yourself, within yourself, around what is right and what is wrong. This is a time for you to become very quiet. Very quiet. You do not have to fight. This is a time for self-care. Take that time. There are boundaries that people have broken with you. This is a theme for you to look at. Theme of boundaries with people and with disease. Imagine that you can develop a relationship with what is eating away at you. It's eating away at you, but it doesn't need to anymore. Take your divine power, and you will be supported by Spirit to do so, to speak to that which is eating away at you and ask it to leave. For you are not its nourishment. But it doesn't know that. It thinks it's okay. So as soon, and you have already done it, as soon as you fully accept who you are and know that you are a powerful being on this planet, you will not get powered over anymore, nor will people break your boundaries. You are being asked to speak to these energetics that are eating away inside of you. Ask them to leave. And they will begin to leave. And imagine and visualize the areas that they're addressing. all through here and other places. But they will listen. Ask yourself what you want that place to look like. Draw it, visualize it, take a picture. You are being supported for your greatest healing. Write down 22 ways that you love yourself. That's the beginning. 22 ways that you love inside yourself. Be specific. And you will see how things will begin to shift. Don't be afraid to ask for help. Seek the diagnoses that you need from medical professionals. But connect to divine source for clarity. You have an amazingly beautiful heart. It is coming out of your chest. Beautiful ways, spreading all over this room, the heart of your being. This challenge you're experiencing is like a near-death experience. And it's important that you know that your ancestors experienced it too. So they're here to support you in breaking this chain of being powered over. And one of your past lives, there are many past lives, but this one, I'm being guided to share out loud, and that is that you were burned at the stake in another lifetime. And it was also another theme, so boundaries, and the theme of fearing retribution of speaking your truth. But you are in a place and space now where you will be supported to grace that karma, to unwind the many centuries of that egregious act. Blessings to you. Okay. One more. That's it.
I'm considering writing a book, and I'm wondering if that is a useful path for me, a productive thing for me and for those who might benefit.
The answer is just complete green light, yes, what you asked. The notion of it being beneficial absolutely would be beneficial. Yet it is important that you know that you might experience it as tiring for you. And so if you choose to do this, which is getting many green lights, and I am being shown you in the future with a gigantic smile on your face, many people around, and you're signing books. And that is not the most important thing for you. The getting the information out is what your heart is saying. But know that it will take patience and inviting many people to help you so that what you're good at is what you focus on versus what you struggle to do. Get help with what you struggle to do to get this done. And yes, it's very much seen as a healing book. There is a encouragement that there be a snappy name for it. You will receive a name for it. Have it not be too long. 2 words, perhaps 3. And I will tell you, this banner is going across saying, nourish your heart. Do not expect to receive a lot of money for it. It is what will be exchanged in resources otherwise, referring and collaborations and really heartfelt impact in the world. Yes. It is time to put closure. Divine Source, all the guides, all those from the ancestral realms, angelic realms, master teachers. Thank you for the messages for this beloved group. May they walk their path with those messages that were gifted. May they receive them with openness and let aside those that do not resonate with them. Blessings to all of you. I hope this was helpful. I wish you beautiful lives, beautiful walk on this planet. Have a safe drive. If anyone would wish to purchase my book, it's over there. I'm also, of course, available for individual sessions. And you could call me or write to me. My website is leadbywisdom.com.